Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and today we're working on another free pattern. I fell in love with this pattern because it is not only gorgeous, but it is free, and I couldn't believe it when they announced that it was gonna be free. I was super excited. This pattern can be made into a top version and can also be made into a dress version, and it's got different kinds of sleeves. It's got like the bishop sleeve, which are the fuller sleeves. It's got the shorter sleeve, the short sleeve with the gathering, or it's got a cuff sleeve. There's so many different options on the sleeve, and then you can make it as a peplum dress as well, top. So it is super cool, and again, it's free. So if you want to sew this pattern up, you can go to the website Little Lizard King and find the Galena pattern, dress pattern, and come back over here and let's sew it together. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start by putting our bodice together. I am going to be working on the short sleeves today with the elastic, just because I think that sleeve is gorgeous, but also because I think it's the trickiest of the both of them, and I wanted to just go ahead and go with the one that would be kind of the hardest to do. So what I'm doing though first is I'm gonna place the bodice. This is the back bodice face up on my mat, and I'm gonna grab the front bodice face down on it, on those shoulder seams. So we're gonna sew the shoulders together, right sides together, and then we're gonna sew our sides of our bodice together, also right sides together. So essentially we're just putting the whole thing together. So let's sew them. While I'm doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and also prep my neckband. This neckband is gonna be put on like binding. So we're gonna like put a binding on, and it gives it a really nice look. If you wanted to, I haven't tried this yet, but if you wanted to, I think that you could do the same thing. Just fold the fabric in half and do a regular neckline if you do not like to do binding. The only reason why I say that is because when we do binding, we will be doing top stitching on the neckline, and some people do not like top stitching over the neckline, and I actually think that if you did this as a regular neckband, it would work just fine. I would also try it on a muslin before you actually try it on your nice fabric, because like I said, I've never used it as a neckline. I just do it as binding, like per pattern. So we're gonna grab our neck and we're gonna put it right sides together at that short raw edge, and we'll sew that short raw edge together to create like a whole neckline neckband piece. All right, so here we have our bodice, and I'm gonna keep it inside out because that's where we're gonna attach our neckband. We're gonna grab our neckband and we're going to quarter it first by going from the back seam to the front. I like to do a little notch so I can see it when I'm attaching it, but it's small enough that once I sew it on, you won't be able to see it. And I'm gonna go put the middles together and go to one side and then go to the other side. And those are my quarters. And then I'm gonna quarter my bodice by grabbing those shoulder seams together and going to the front. And then we're gonna go ahead and go again to the back. And those are my front and back. And then I'm gonna grab my front and my back and place them together and go to one side because my shoulder seams are not my quarters, and then go to the other side. Now I have my quarters all over. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my neckband. I'll start with the back seam, and I'm gonna put that right side of the neckband to the wrong side of the bodice, and we're gonna attach it. Like I said, if you are doing a neckband instead of the binding, you will be folding this neckband in half, wrong sides together, and then you will attach it right sides to your dress neckline. But this one, we're binding, so that's why we're attaching it to the wrong side. The right side of the neckband to the wrong side of the bodice. And then we're gonna go over to our sewing machine and we're gonna sew it onto our bodice by stretching it lightly so it fits all the way around. Now we will turn our bodice right side out. We're gonna pull our hem up, our seam allowance is gonna go up, and then we're gonna fold this neckband down halfway, and then down again over, so halfway and then over, flip it over that seam allowance. So what we're gonna do is we're encasing that seam allowance in, is essentially what we're doing. Okay, and we're gonna do that all the way around the whole neckline. So pull that seam allowance up, fold that binding down, and then fold it again right on top of that seam allowance. Then you wanna steam and pin or clip it down. I will say when I am attaching my binding, I like to kind of spread it out a little bit, because obviously we kind of tighten it a little bit to sew it when we sewed it on. So we want to make sure that it's spread out evenly. Also, I do have to say, I do love the look of binding. It is so nice and finished. It's a really good finish on your dress. It looks very, very polished. So that's why I think if you can do binding, and if you will try binding and you know, not be scared of it, I think you're really going to like it. It gives it a really, really nice look. Now, if you only have a sewing machine and you don't have a cover stitch, because I am going to be using my cover stitch to top stitch this down, I will say that it is a little bit more difficult because you will have to use some kind of stretch stitch to top stitch this. So you can either use like a zigzag stitch, or you can use like a double needle or something like that on your sewing machine, but it has to be a stretch stitch so that it will fit over your head. If you do a straight stitch, the fabric won't have the nice stretch to go over your head, and it will make it difficult to put on. So what I would do is I either would use a double needle, or I would use a zigzag stitch, a small zigzag stitch that will match the color of my fabric and just go around the bottom edge of it. And I think that that will give it also a really nice look. So just because you don't have a cover stitch doesn't mean that you can't do this version. I think you still can. So I'm gonna go over to my cover stitch and top stitch this down. All right, when I'm going to use my cover stitch, I like to start right in the back. And I like to place my fabric kind of in between. If you look at your foot of your cover stitch, if you're using a cover stitch, this cover stitch, it will have like two edges on the inside. So I try to line it up kind of right in the middle, and then I get going. Our binding is done. How pretty. Let's put it aside, and we're gonna work on our sleeve. I marked my sleeves. I have the back, I did a little notch when I was cutting it, I went up, but the front I just marked it with my clip. The reason why I did that is because I kind of want to know where my front of my sleeve is and the back of my sleeve is, so I mark them differently. That way I remember every time when I go to sew it on, I know which one's my front, which one's my back. I always like to go ahead and fold my sleeve in half before I even sew it or do anything with it, and find my half point, because that's what I'm going to attach to my seam allowance when I go to attach my sleeve. So I'll do that. And then what we can do now is you can go ahead and put in a gathering stitch from mark to mark. This is where my sleeve is going to gather a little bit to give me that little cap like sleeve. But if you want to, you can go ahead and do that now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move on and just do my memory hem fold line right now. That way I have that done. I don't have my ruler around here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use my measuring tape because I have it right here, and we want to do an inch allowance. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold it in a whole inch, and then it's gonna be an inch hem, and then we're gonna use our iron and we're going to steam it down so that we have that memory fold. It makes it easier when you go and sew your sleeve on the round to have that memory fold, because then later when you go to sew it together, that fold it makes it easier, because when your sleeve is on the round, it's kind of hard to fold it, but when you have that memory fold there, it makes it a lot easier. All right, I don't usually measure. I just did that for show to show you all how to measure it, but I don't usually. I'm pretty bad. Then we can go ahead and sew this sleeve right here at that raw edge right sides together. And the reason why I'm going to go ahead and like do all this at the same time, so that's why I didn't put in the gathering stitch yet, but you can do that first. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to my serger and sew that raw edge right there. Then I'm gonna go to my sewing machine. We're gonna put a gathering stitch at the top, which is just gonna be a long basting stitch. My sewing machine, the longest stitch on there is a size 4. You can go all the way to size 6 if you'd like, but we're gonna go a size 4 all the way up top. And then we're gonna go at the bottom of our sleeve. We're gonna work on that. I'll tell you that while we're doing it. That way I don't give you too much info. Let's do this. First off, I'm gonna go ahead and put in that basting stitch. I'm gonna leave a tail at the end, start at that one point and go over all the way to that next point. And then pull and leave a good long tail at the end. Do that for both sleeves. All right, now I'm gonna grab my sleeve and fold that hem, folded hem that we made earlier, and we're gonna go into our sewing machine and we're gonna sew 1/8 of an inch away from our seam and up from our edge. And what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna go from the front. I don't know. I think it's best to go from the back, but I'm always so scared that I'm not gonna get it right where I want it. But we'll do it. We're gonna go in and we're gonna do it all the way around, leaving, I say all the way around, but it's not really all the way around. We're gonna leave about an inch gap opening where we're gonna insert our elastic. So we'll go with, I'm doing a straight stitch all the way around, leaving a gap to put my elastic in. All right, so there's my gap. Now I'm gonna go 3/8 away from my top stitch, 3/8 of an inch, and do another line to make that casing for my elastic. And now this time I'm gonna go all the way around, so I don't need to leave a gap on this edge. All right, so it's obviously best if you measure it. I didn't, I just went for it. And right here, I know I got too close to the edge, so it's not gonna have my fluttery effect that that it usually has. So I might go back and redo that stitch right there because I do like it, the little effect, the fluttery effect that the sleeve does. So I'm gonna go back over and just, so now if you see me doing it over, you don't say, oh, why is she doing it over? And I'm gonna do it for the other sleeve as well. All right, so in the pattern, there is a cutting chart for my elastic, but the best way to get a good result on what size elastic to cut is for you to measure it around your arm first to make sure it is the, how wide how stretchy you want it, how long you want it. What is the word? And then we're gonna tuck it into through that gap that we left and go all the way around. All right, when we get back over here where it is, make sure you grab it and don't twist your elastic. And then we're gonna overlap it and sew a zigzag stitch over it to put it together. Once you do that, you're gonna tuck it back in and pull it all the way around. And then we're gonna go ahead and close that gap that we left earlier. And obviously we're doing that for both sleeves. Our sleeves are prepped and you can cut all these threads. I'll have to cut them all at the end, and here I am throwing them everywhere. Oof. Anyway, once our sleeves are prepped, we're gonna go ahead and attach them. And we are going to do that by grabbing our bodice and turning it inside out. And then we're gonna go ahead and fit our sleeve into our arm side. Okay, turn that sleeve, it's still right side out. And we're gonna match up that bottom seam right here to the bottom seam of your bodice, so your armpit seam. And what we're doing is we're matching them right sides together. We're gonna put that sleeve in there, and then we're gonna find that top mark that I made earlier, and that's where we match up to the top of our sleeve. And then from there, we're going to pin straight those sides all the way up to that mark where we started gathering. So right sides together. Okay, and then right here where we started that gather, we're going to pull on that back stitch, the bobbin thread, to gather a little bit so it sits nicely. So you're just gathering it enough that it'll fit in. So we'll gather it to the top, and now you see that it's flush. Okay, it's not a huge gather, so it's not like you have to be like, ooh, oh my god, you know, you don't even have to gather it before you put it onto the sleeve. And then the other one, the other side, pin right there, and then again, we're gonna pull that basting stitch from the back and gather, you know, just kind of gather it a little bit to go to the middle part, and so that it is straight and it fits in there nicely. We are going to attach sleeves, sew the skirt together and sew it on, and we're done. Like, we already did the hardest part. Pretty easy, huh? And then I'm gonna do the same for the other sleeve. Now, at the same time we're sewing our sleeves, I'm going to go ahead and sew my skirt together. I actually threw those threads in the bin, which usually I just kind of throw them on the ground, which is not good. My sewing room ends up all super fluffy. Okay, so we're gonna grab those skirt panels and put them right sides together at that raw edge and sew them together to create our skirt. Just make sure that you're sewing the sides together at the right way, so you know that this is the waistline right here, so it's a smaller circle, and then the bottom obviously being the skirt part, the open flare, which is wider. And let's sew those together at the same time. So we'll sew that sleeve on, and then we'll sew the side of our skirt. And then what I'll do is we'll go ahead and hem. So I'll go ahead and hem my skirt as well. And then we'll come back to put our skirt and our bodice together, and we'll be done. Super cool. Okay, seam allowance, 1/2 inch, stem all the way around, and then we'll hem it. We made it. We're almost done, and I'm super excited. I can't wait. This fabric is gorgeousness. It is from Olga's Closet. I will actually link it below if you want to go grab it. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous fabric. I'll also link the pattern below so you can grab it for free. So yeah, and then you can come back and sew it with me. So let's find our halves of our skirt. We've got our sides already. So we just match those two sides and go from the front to the back, and we mark it. Hey, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other free patterns I'll bring your way. And I'm also doing some other sort of sewing tutorials, so come check us out. Subscribe. Also, comment below and let me know what you want to see. What do you want to see from this channel? What things are you struggling with in your sewing journey, and you would like me to, you know, give you a little help here and there, and just do it together. It is so fun. I love being able to just sew together and finish a project that we both love, and then being able to finish it together, because there's just something about grabbing a piece of fabric that is nothing and turning it into something beautiful. It is just so soul lifting. I feel like when I'm done sewing something that I love and it looks gorgeous, I am just overwhelmed. It is so much fun. So I want you to have that feeling as well. Let me know what you need help with, what you want me to give more information on or make more videos on, and then I'll come and check that out and do that. So we're also finding our half of our bodice. We match our sides. We go to the back and the front, and then we're gonna grab our bodice, we're gonna grab our skirt, and we're gonna put them right sides together. So we're gonna fit it right inside and put it right sides together, matching those quarter points. Now at this point right here, if you want to add some clear elastic, if you're working with fabric that is heavier, clear elastic would be something that might be helpful for you, because sometimes the skirt can be kind of heavy and pull on your top, on your bodice, so it will pull it down. So clear elastic will help with stability right there at the waist. What I would do is, as I'm sewing it, I would add that clear elastic on. I do have a video on how to gather with clear elastic, but this wouldn't be a gathering. You wouldn't pull the elastic, you would just attach it on there without pulling. So it's just giving you the stability that you need. So if that's something you want to do, you can go ahead and add that right now. So we're gonna sew that waist up and we'll be done. My friends, we are done. How gorgeous is this beautiful dress? Y'all, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you love this dress as much as I do. It is adorable. I love the way that the skirt hangs. I love these beautiful sleeves and this neckline. Super, super lovely. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Come join me for our next sew along. Comment, like, share, subscribe if you haven't. Hit that subscribe button. And go watch all the other videos so you can make all these free, beautiful patterns with me. I'll see y'all